minutes and then, oh, thank you very much, Cynthia. Sarah, lovely to meet you. Oh, I can't see you. It's got a thing over the top. Oh, that's better. There you are.
Yep.
So yes, welcome to the Leadership in Early Years Education RIG.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for coming to see us and particularly for choosing Mona's presentation today, which is very interesting. I just, as there's only a few of us here today, I was wondering, yeah, would you like to introduce yourself? Because I don't think we've met before.
Yeah, I'm doing a PhD with Birmingham City University on
Ah,
leadership in early years. So very topical. Uh,
oh,
and I'm the founder of the All Station Nursery. So we've got 79 settings.
wow.
Fantastic. That's
Mm,
really exciting.
yeah.
And yeah, you're fairly local to me, so I'm in
Ah,
Midlands as well. So
yeah.
I'm currently at the University of Worcester.
All right. I live in Cheltenham, so not
Ah,
bad.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, not far at all. Oh,
Mm,
nice to meet you.
thank you.
Right, well, Mona is.
Mandy, just checking you can see the other people on the call. We've also got Tracy, Kim, Jamie. I just
No, I can't see that at
okay.
all.
I thought that might be the case. The way that you were.
Ah, okay,
We
fantastic.
are a group. I think you thought we were just presenting to Sarah, but we are a little group. So we've got yeah.
Small, but well formed.
Well, I feel now, as I've asked Sarah to introduce herself, I should ask our guests to introduce themselves too. Hello, everyone else. Sorry, I've just re-uploaded Zoom. Sorry, re-downloaded Zoom for the first time today, and I don't think I've got full functionality yet. So yes, Tracy, fantastic. Lovely to see you, and Jamie and Kim as well. Fantastic. Tracy, would you like to introduce yourself too?
Love to. Thank you. I am, as Mona suggested, doing several things, and that's why I put my camera off. So please don't think I'm ignoring you. My name's Tracy Butterfield. I am the new National Education Lead here at Twinkle for EYFS, PVI and Childminders. Previously been at Speech and Language UK, before that local authority advisor for 15 years, and lots of other things besides. So yes, a big bag of experience behind me, but really interested to see what you guys are going to say today.
Oh, wonderful. Wow. Many strings to your bow. And who else we got? Oh, Jamie as well. Hello, Jamie. Who potentially can't hear us, but maybe we can come back to you later. And also Kim. Hello, Kim. Hiya.
Hi. I work at Archfield House Nursery. I'm the baby room lead. So I feel like a very little fish in a big pond right now, surrounded by you guys. But
Not
yeah.
at all. I feel like I know Archfield House Nursery so
Oh,
well, even though I've never actually been there. But I
I've
just know
attended
many
many of your courses.
yes.
Yeah.
I can't wait for the day where I actually visit. Fingers
Oh, we'd love to have you.
I'd love
We'd
to
love
come.
to. Everyone would be at their knees.
Oh, no, I
We
can't.
praise your work so much at Archfield. So yes, we'd love
Thank
to have
you.
you.
That's so nice. Thank you.
Welcome.
Oh, fabulous. What a really interesting group today. Fantastic to meet everyone. Well, at this point, Mona, I don't want to waste any more of your time. So Mona, my wonderful colleague who I've known for many years now and previously co-convener of this RIG, is down at the University of Middlesex and has really been a huge driving force behind this baby room leadership project, which, oh, now when did you set this up? Was this 3 years ago now, Mona?
Well, it's had like different lives, but the current project that we're doing is from 2024. So it's only been going a year. So this is the Nuffield funded project on baby rooms, but there are kind of little projects, including one that was initially supported by Belmus all the way back in 2021, I think.
Mm.
So yeah.
Yeah, and it's really wonderful, groundbreaking stuff. I've had a lot of conversations with people recently, sort of bemoaning the fact, and leadership concerning the baby room. Yeah, we really need to think about that. I said, well, let me point you in the direction of my colleague, Mona, down at the University of Middlesex, who has been thinking exactly about this and has been putting some very practical steps in place to ensure that leadership development is there. So I think it's a wonderful project, and please do tell us all about it.
Okay, fabulous, amazing. So I am going to talk for a bit, and then hopefully there'll be some time at the end for a conversation and discussion and comments, and yeah, lots of dialogue. But I have got quite a lot to say. I realized as I was putting these slides together, I was like, whoa, there is a lot here, because I'm basically bringing together two kind of areas of my work. One is social leadership, which is a kind of model of leadership that I designed together with Juno Sullivan, which I'll introduce you to. And the book on social leadership came out in 2022. But I've also been doing all this work on the baby room, and it's kind of my main passion and focus at the moment is what's happening in the baby room, especially given the kind of rapid expansion of baby rooms around the country as we get more 9-month-olds into the baby room with the subsidy in place. So social leadership, baby room, bringing them together, it turns out is like massively fun, but also massively huge. So I will try and keep this quite kind of snappy and to the point, but bear with me as I try and kind of get under the skin of this. So where do I want to take you today? I want to do a little bit of talking around social leadership, because I'm not going to assume that you're familiar with the model of social leadership. I want to try and convince you about why this is a useful way of thinking about leadership in early years, full stop. I'm going to introduce you within that to 5 elements of social leadership. And then I want to try and look at each of those elements as applied to the baby room. And just here in terms of terminology, you'll probably all be familiar, but just in case, in the kind of English system, nurseries often have a baby room that serves typically babies between the ages of 0 and 2. It changes from setting to setting, but what we see most commonly is that we have a room in the nursery for the under 2s. And because of the expansion of the entitlement, the significant expansion of the entitlement, which will be full in September, so it will be fully completed in September, we've got this really rapid expansion of provision for under 2s, which is affecting baby rooms massively. So never has it been more needed that we actually focus on what's going on in the baby room and trying to bring models of leadership to the baby room specifically, rather than expect, as we too often do, baby room educators to try and make things work for them. We need to do some of that work, actually. Okay, so just before I get going, I'm doing this presentation, but just to say, whenever I'm talking about social leadership, I'm talking about a model that I developed together with Juno Sullivan. And if you don't know Juno Sullivan, but many of you will do, she is the CEO of London Early Years Foundation. She's an incredibly inspiring person who has years and years and years of experience in the sector, but also has a very kind of clear voice and a real passion and commitment to delivering the best for young children. So when I speak about social leadership, it's a baby that belongs to both of us. So just to be aware of that. Now, social leadership, let's get into what is social leadership. Why did we come up with this model? Nobody really tends to go into early childhood education because they want to make lots of money or they want to be really powerful. I think it's true to say that the vast majority of people that work in early childhood education are there because they have a sense of a social purpose. They want to make a contribution to society. To put it in cheesy terms, we're there because we want to make the world a better place, right? That's, I would say, the vast majority of people that I come across in the sector, that's true of them. But we have, bumping up against that desire for a social purpose, the realities, the messy realities of the sector as it actually operates in this country. So we have a mixed economy where a majority of places for under fives are provided through private provision. And I would go so far as to say it's a kind of unhappy mixed economy. There are tensions, there are question marks over how we deliver early years education. And obviously, as part of that, with the majority of places being in private settings, we somehow have to get comfortable with making a profit being an agenda that we have in early years, while at the same time being deeply committed to a social purpose, right? So we have this kind of tension in play. That's nobody's fault, but it is a tension that's there. We have significant chronic underinvestment. You know, over the last 15 years, early childhood has had a lot of the funds taken out of it. We know that the amount of money going in to subsidize places for children don't cover the costs of doing a good job around that. So we have this underinvestment. We have this sense of fragmentation. There's lots of different bodies that represent early years providers, and they're not always on the same page with each other. And on a really kind of like day-to-day note, often what I find with baby room educators is they would love to be in a network with other baby room educators in the local area, but actually their managers are very often worried about trying to set up a network because in the context of our recruitment and retention crisis, the worry is of like good people being poached. Okay, so that's a really good day-to-day example of how this fragmentation plays out, that people actually can't network with each other in genuine ways because of the competitive nature of the sector. And we know as well from the data, and as kind of discussed in the Best Start in Life strategy, we are at the moment failing children and families from backgrounds of disadvantage. By the time you start school, a lot of the disadvantage that we see playing out later is already in place. A lot of that educational disparity is already in place. So we're not doing what we would ideally like to do, which is make the world a better place for every child. So our current models of leadership in early childhood respond to this mess very often. So you often get kind of models of leadership in early childhood that speak about it as a kind of juggling or balancing act, right? So that we need to wear lots of different hats as a leader in early years. One of the hats we wear is the pedagogy bit. So we're a pedagogical leader, but we also have to wear the hat of the kind of financial leader and financial sustainability and making sure that works. And we need to kind of wear our business hat alongside our social purpose hat. And there was a wonderful review conducted by Professor Julie Nicholson looking at all the literature on leadership in early childhood education and care, which essentially came to the conclusion that in all the midst of this research and writing and these models and theories, what we've lost is that sense of a social purpose. That actually very often we are focused on like competence and doing an effective job as a leader, but actually we've forgotten to ask the question of like, why are we leading? And we're leading to make that contribution to society. So this is where social leadership gets born. It's June and I talking together and thinking, okay, so we've got a situation where social purpose, we know day to day, is like really important to people in the sector, but we've also got these models of leadership that don't prioritize social purpose. We need a model of leadership that does. And so we came up with the social leadership model, not because we think that nobody's doing it, but because we actually think lots of people are social leaders in the sector, but that it's really helpful to name it, to understand it, to draw out what the elements of social leadership is. And by doing that, to kind of set up the conditions to generate more of it. So that brings us to actually what is the model? And I should say that the way we came to this model was not just plucking things from the air. June has the most amazing little black book of contacts around the world who work in early childhood education. And we got to interview, gosh, it was a long time ago, but I think around 40 different leaders in early childhood education that we identified as leading with a social purpose. So we started with that premise. You know, we want to talk to people that lead with social purpose, but then ask the question of like, how do they do that? And what else do they do that makes them a social leader? And through those conversations and through the analysis of those conversations, we develop these 5 elements of social leadership. So we have leading with a social purpose, and that really is the heart of the model, that you lead with that sense of making a contribution to society in everything that you do. Following on from that then was this social pedagogy element. So this idea that the social purpose is like the heart, but the social pedagogy is like the heartbeat. It's how you make the social purpose live day to day. How do you actually play it out and live it out in the context of early childhood education? And I'm going to give examples of each of these in the baby room, so don't worry too much if it's sounding abstract. So we have our social purpose, we have our social pedagogy that makes the social purpose real. But what we also found through our conversations with these leaders was an unmistakable commitment to a culture, a particular kind of organizational culture that's based on collaborative innovation. So really trying to empower everybody in the organization at whatever level. So you might be leading in the baby room, and so this is your baby room team. We're talking about the culture of that baby room team. Or you could be leading, as you are, Sarah, you were mentioning kind of having multiple settings. So you could be leading at the level of a nursery group or a nursery chain, but still you want to generate that culture of collaborative innovation. And collaborative innovation is this idea that everybody's ideas are valued. We come up with our ideas together. We make things happen as a result of everybody bringing in their passion, their commitment, their particular ways of thinking and doing. The 4th element of social leadership that came out was this investing in others' leadership. And this is really important because we are a sector of accidental leaders very often. I can ask lots of baby room leaders what their title is, and they say, oh, well, I'm a baby room leader, but I don't like to call myself that. Like, I'm just one of the team, right? I don't like to use the term leader, or I'm not really a leader. I hear that very often. I'm not really a leader. We shy away from actually using this idea of leadership as a way to get done what we want to get done. And so this idea of investing in everybody's sense of leadership across the sector came out quite strongly in our conversations, so that you are ready to assume leadership, but you also want to empower others to think about themselves and to work as leaders. Okay. And then finally, our 5th element was all around powerful conversations. We had loads of powerful conversations in order to generate the model. And so this felt particularly kind of helpful and relevant. But in reality, when we think about early childhood education day to day, it's made on powerful conversations, or it's made on conversations that aren't yet powerful, but could be, right? Like the conversations that we have with parents at pickup. We can have a conversation, but we can also do it as a powerful conversation that actually shifts and changes the dynamics surrounding that particular child. I think about as well the conversations that we have on the floor between ourselves. So we can have those moments of reflective practice on the floor in the baby room, often while we're packing the babies to sleep. We might turn to each other and say, I really like the way that you did that. I really like the way you spoke to that baby while you were changing their nappy. Could you show me how to do something like that? Or why did you do that? Why did you set up this activity? That's a powerful conversation to have. And of course, there are also the powerful conversations that sit within a hierarchy as well. So the coaching conversations, the mentoring conversations that make a real difference. So these are our kind of 5 elements that we got to of social leadership. Now what I want to do is think about the baby room specifically. So we're probably all aware of this context, but essentially we've had these significant expansions of the entitlement. Big shift from September 2024 was 9-month-olds for the first time public money going into the provision for 9 months to 2 years. And by September of this year, so we're not far away now, in just a couple of months' time, we're talking about 30 hours. That is a huge shift because in the past, we've tended to see the baby room as a kind of private exchange almost between a family and that nursery, right? Government haven't got that involved with it. Yes, Ofsted, although it's really interesting what we hear about Ofsted in the baby room, but Ofsted might drop in, check a couple of things, but that's about it. But now with this public money, a lot of public money going into the baby room, surely that begs for more scrutiny of what's actually going on in the baby room, a closer look at what's going on in the baby room. And that's what led to our project. So I do this project together with Sarah Bonetti and Kayla Halls, which is funded by the Nuffield Foundation, called Achieving High Quality Provision in the Baby Room of English Nurseries. And the aim of this research is to develop with the sector a vision of what quality looks and feels like in the baby room of English nurseries. Like, what standards do we want to be holding ourselves accountable to? What do we see as good in the baby room? And you'll see as I talk about social leadership in relation to this, but this means going back to some really fundamental questions like, what's the baby room even for? What is the baby room for? And sometimes the way it's talked about by government is it's for enabling parents to go back to work or to go to work. But that's not really a vision that gets many people who work in the baby room that excited, and understandably so, right? It's not baby-led as a vision. So part of our project is trying to actually, can we generate together some excitement of like what's possible in the baby room, as well as some kind of critical reflection around it. And in our project, we've got these 3 strands. So we've carried out a global evidence review looking at like how quality is conceptualized in the baby room, how it's measured, how it can be supported. And actually, there are some really strong conclusions just from doing that. We looked at about 160 academic journal articles. We then looked at, in addition, about 25 grey literature items. And even doing just that shows us that there are question marks over the way we run our baby rooms in England. We've just got to the end of these amazing focus groups and surveys with baby room educators. So we're now looking at data from over 300 surveys that we've gathered from baby room educators and nursery managers. And we're looking at over 200 people participating in our focus groups. So this is the biggest ever study of baby rooms in England, or across the UK for that matter. Okay. And where we're going with it next is to say, okay, this is what everybody's saying about the baby room. What does that mean for the future of the baby room? So we'll be holding these workshops with stakeholders to try and come together around a vision of the future of the baby room. Okay. So social leadership over here, like these are the elements of social leadership. And then on this hand, it's like, okay, the baby room project and understanding what's going on in the baby room. But the reality is that these 2 things interlink massively, because we can look at each of these elements and ask, what does that mean in the context of the baby room? What would it mean to lead with social purpose in the baby room? What would it mean to drive a social pedagogy in the baby room? What does a culture of collaborative innovation look like in the baby room? How do we invest in leadership in the baby room? And what powerful conversations are going on? So I've started in a not very systematic way, but to put together the emerging data from the Baby Room project together with these elements of social leadership. Okay. And we start with social purpose, right? That's the heart of social leadership, is leading with a social purpose. And we hit straight away up against a dilemma when it comes to the baby room, because what is the baby room for? Why do we have a baby room? Why do we work in a baby room? What is it that we're actually trying to achieve? And it's amazing, actually, in all the focus groups we've done, 16 focus groups with baby room educators and nursery managers, there isn't clarity around this at all, around, what is the social purpose of the baby room? Who's this for? And it can be about lots of different things, right? So sometimes implicitly, we think about it in terms of the individual baby, right? So that the baby room is there to support the flourishing of babies. So it's there to support their learning, their development, their well-being. But when others talk about the baby room, they might prioritize support for the families, the partnership with the families, the feeling that actually they are helping the babies. That's their social purpose, but in the context of the whole family. So really they're working with families. Alternatively, for some, the social purpose isn't about kind of support or development. It's just about being in relationship with the babies. It's about a kind of a relational pedagogy, a relational joy, if I can call it that. It's about professional love. So it's really just about experiencing love in the moment with the babies. And that's it. It's not about using that love to advance the babies. It's actually just about being in that relationship of love with the babies. Alternatively, for some, the baby room is a kind of pillar of the community. So actually, it could be a hub of interprofessional working, couldn't it? If you think about health visitors at the moment, we find, do very little that's connected with baby room educators. There's very little valuing of what baby room educators bring in terms of knowledge and understanding of particular babies. But actually, we could generate a social purpose much more in line with, for example, the family hubs, where we're saying baby rooms are a hub for the community. And these are just some options. This is not exhaustive, but what's amazing is I think we're only at the beginning of starting to articulate and think through what it might mean to lead with a social purpose in the baby room. We have to very intentionally put to one side the idea, the agenda, and the discourse that this is just about enabling parents to go to work, because that is not going to motivate and support us to do a really great job in the baby room. It's just not. It's not enough. It essentially is demoting baby room educators. You are a babysitter. Get them through these hours while mum or dad is at work. Yeah, that's not enough. So we've got to generate some kind of social purpose in the baby room. Similarly, we need to build a social pedagogy. So following from that social purpose, we need to think, how does this get enacted day to day? One of the big differences we've found across baby rooms is whether they have an open door or a closed door. And it's an open door with families, but also with others as well. So sometimes we find baby rooms that feel particularly kind of separate, isolated, cloistered. And that can be about kind of protecting the babies from overwhelm and so on. However, if we're saying that our social purpose is to see the baby in the context of the family and to relate to the baby in the context of the family, then our social pedagogy would need to match that, right? We would need to have a policy where families are in and they are with us, and we are having these amazing conversations at the beginning and the end of the day that are really rich. Again, it's one of the reasons I love Archfield House Nursery, is I know how this open door policy plays out, and they're not alone, but it's fascinating to see the difference in baby rooms. The kinds of ways we interact with babies day to day depends on our social purpose, right? It's pedagogical, but where does that pedagogy sit? It sits with what is it we're trying to give to this baby. When we come across policies, for example, that explicitly limit the amount of loving touch and affection for babies in the baby room, we've really got to kind of go, okay, how does that trace back to our social purpose? If the social purpose is belonging, love, attachment, stability in the foundations of life, then actually to have a policy that limits the things we know support with that, evidence shows support with that, then actually we've got a mismatch there, right? So we've got to go back to social purpose and social pedagogy. Collaborative innovation is interesting in the baby room because one of the major themes that we'll publish in our report from the focus groups is that team dynamics are essential in the baby room. They're essential everywhere, but they seem to be particularly essential in the baby room because if you think about a preschool room or a toddler room, there's a lot of things going on, right? There's a lot of activity. And you can, as an individual educator, kind of take these children off here to do this thing with them, or go and join in with these children. A baby room tends to involve a lot more intense interaction between staff. So then how is those interactions playing out? Are they joyful? Are they understanding? Are they supportive? Do they generate this sense of belonging and trust? And are there systems at play that actually enable the team to cope with the high levels of physical and emotional exhaustion? So there's a huge difference, for example, between the baby rooms that have a kind of tap in, tap out system. Huge difference as well between the baby rooms where managers come in very regularly and spend time in that room and a part of the team there, and those teams that the individuals feel much more isolated within, and they kind of have to hold on to the exhaustion alone. And as you can imagine, linking that to things like retention, we haven't got the kind of quantitative data to prove this yet, but I'm sure a correlation between the team dynamic and the retention within the room. So this is something we need to get right now. And collaborative innovation is kind of absolutely, that's where we would love to get to. But really, we need to start in the baby room with some basic stuff around what does it mean to act as a team in the baby room? What does that look like day to day? Which links on very nicely to my next point, because in social leadership, we talk about investing in everybody's leadership. Everyone's a leader. You know, can we have this leadership pipeline and this sense of pedagogical leadership across settings? But in the baby room, I actually think we need to play this a little bit differently. We need to start by valuing the baby room leader. Because the reality is that that leader is shaping so much of that team culture. And very rarely are they actually taking any credit for that. So they come up with, for example, the system of if you need to tap out, if you need 5 minutes, don't worry, just literally say to me the word banana and I will find a little way of rotating us, right? You don't need to say you're exhausted. You don't need to say I need 5 minutes, because that's really kind of emotionally laden in itself. You can just say the word banana. I know what you mean, and I'm going to help you. Okay. That is leadership. My goodness, that is such a great example of leadership. But very often that same person that's developed that system and uses it to great effect will say, I'm not really a leader. I'm just one of the team. Or even worse, I'm just one of the girls. Just, you know, I just see myself among the team, right? So we really need to think about, I believe, valuing, celebrating, and kind of broadcasting the work of the baby room leader. What are the ways in which they support their team? And I think it's good for everybody, because the baby room leader, who's often overlooked, gets to be celebrated, but also the others in the room have this sense of progression, have a sense of looking up to somebody. Okay. And so this does not mean a super hierarchical vision of leadership where the baby room leader is telling everybody what to do, but it is about feeling empowered to be a little bit kind of, to take the initiative, to be proactive, to have the conversations with management where actually there's some pushback maybe, and we say, you know, this policy you have, I'm not sure it's going to work with the babies so well. We're trying to do it day to day, but this is what we're encountering. So we really need this person, this middle manager of the baby room leader, to be a kind of a role that we understand and get. And then our last one, and then I'll draw to a close, but this powerful conversations, there's so many powerful conversations that shape the reality of the baby room. One of the most powerful that we see is when we're looking at professional learning for baby room educators, the landscape's a bit dire. I thought things had got better, but actually we're doing searches at the moment for really what's available, and it's so patchy. You get some amazing LAs who have really specific, baby-specific professional learning, but you get LAs where there's really nothing about babies. Same with stronger practice hubs, you know, so it's patchy. However, what we've found through our focus groups is the most effective way that baby room educators feel that they learn are through the conversations that happen on the floor about their practice. Okay, so not to say it's not important to get them out and doing training days. I think that's amazing. But it's the conversations where a manager drops in, or they can do it ideally for each other as peers. But those questions of why? Oh, amazing. So you've set up this tough tray with this and this. Why? Or, you know, what are we doing with the babies today? Why are we doing that with the babies? Why did you change the nappy in that way? Why did you change the nappy and not you? Right? And asking that question of why, instantly we're into a powerful conversation, a coaching conversation. It landing well depends on team culture. It depends on a culture of continuous learning. So again, that's something where we need to be looking at the team dynamics. But that is so much more effective than watching a video while the babies sleep about some aspect of baby's brain development. I mean, both are great and helpful, but it's the coaching conversations on the floor that really make the difference. We also need to look at the conversations that happen with parents and carers, because far too often they are not pedagogical conversations. They're conversations about basic care routines and needs. And even then, at the moment, what we're seeing is lots of parents just being directed towards an app. You know, so parents said, how did they sleep today? Oh, you can see the times on the app, right? And the thing about that is we're degrading a key opportunity to influence what's happening for that baby. So even if we say, okay, Shania, yeah, she ate really well today. She was a bit overstimulated after lunch, so it took us a while to get her to sleep. But then she had a good sleep, and so she woke up, I'm sorry, Dad, she woke up about 3:30 rather than at 3. So that might impact a little bit on bedtime, but she just wasn't ready to sleep beforehand. But do you know what we noticed today? We noticed that Shania has already started to move her body to music. And that is so exciting, because previously we were putting on the music and she was looking interested, but she wasn't really moving her body. We've noticed that she started to move her body in response to the music. And it would be amazing if you wanted to. We don't know how much music you play at home, but if you were to play some music with her at home, I wonder what you would see. Okay, that's a pedagogical conversation with a parent or a carer. It takes a few minutes, but again, it's not only about supporting that baby and that family, but enabling the family to see the value of what happens in the baby room. This is more than babysitting. We are invested in the well-being, the learning, and the development of your baby. And of course, powerful conversations extend beyond specific baby rooms. We need to be having these wider conversations across the sector, reflecting on social purpose and social pedagogy in baby rooms. We've got to get to a point where we're excited about a shared vision for what we're doing in baby rooms, and then we can kind of flow from there. Okay, so I'm going to kind of stop there. So we've got hopefully a little bit of time about conversation, just to say, kind of there's a few things you can look at. That if you want to know more about social leadership, probably the best place is this book. It covers all of the elements of social leadership. For stuff on baby rooms, 2 websites to check out. For the stuff on the research, and we publish a fortnightly blog, which is, I think, really insightful, the babyroom.blog. So, and you can subscribe, and that's a great place to kind of get updates on our research and our reports as they come out. There's also this professional learning platform which I run, which is Baby Rooms hyphen Inspiring Leaders. So I set this up as a professional learning platform for baby room leaders. And the idea is to kind of baby specific professional learning. And there's also, and this is from a while back now, but still available online, there's a chat between myself and June about the model of social leadership. And that's quite nice because it talks through how did we actually get there. And it talks about some of the conversations that we had with leaders from around the world that we found really inspiring. So it's a little bit more of a personal take on the model. But I'm going to stop sharing there. And hopefully, yeah, we got a little bit of time for questions.
Thank you. That was absolutely wonderful. I really enjoyed hearing an awful lot more about the project, the research that you've carried out, and the model of social leadership, and thinking about that in the baby room was absolutely fascinating. I love the way that you talked about baby room leaders often seeing themselves as accidental leaders, and I see that across the field of early childhood. I mean, my mum always called herself the accidental leader, setting up kindergartens in the early 1980s. But I think, yes, baby rooms even more so, that lack of training, and of course these ancient messages that we still kind of retain in our society about the work of looking after babies being sort of an automatic feminine role, and therefore perhaps not requiring that same level of kind of intellectual rigor that we expect from other areas of education. So thank you so much for your talk today. And yes, I would like to open up the discussion now to our lovely guests. So please do raise a hand if you've got any questions for Mona today.
Yeah. Can I come in with a question? I didn't put my hand up, sorry, but
You're forgiven, Lewis. Go for it.
thank you. Yeah, no, it's picking up on one of your points towards the end there, and I think you gave a lovely example of how we all would hope a pedagogical conversation with parents would go. I think it's hard though. Like, I was wondering from your focus groups, etc. Did you pick up any like groundwork that colleagues across the sector have done to enable parents to be open to the fact that the baby room isn't just a place for care, but a place for education as well? Because sometimes I find that there's such a gap between parents understanding what their babies can do, beyond just being happy and safe.
Yes, it's so true. And actually what we hear from educators is that they encounter a really wide range of parent attitudes towards their work. So they get people that really value what they're doing, that feel not only that they're supporting their baby, but they feel supported by that person, and turn to that person as like a voice of wisdom and expertise, and ask questions and so on, all the way through to parents that they say actively don't want to have that kind of conversation with me, just want to grab their child and go. And if they do arrive, often it's with so I think the world of digital apps and so on is really playing a bit of, or doing funny things with this, where actually a parent might arrive and the first thing they say is, I see that they slept at this time. Why did they sleep at this time? Right. And so instantly the conversation, you're on a back foot. It's a defensive conversation. It's not it's about kind of basic care. It's not, there's very little space to get in the learning conversations. So in terms of groundwork to set the expectations, yes, we have come across some things. So for example, some nurseries do home visits, which is a huge investment of time and energy and so on. But through those home visits, they will actually try and kind of steer the conversation and steer the tone of the interaction towards learning and development. So actually by asking those initial questions of the parent around, oh, you know, how is baby when they are with somebody they've never met before? What do they tend to do? Or do they have something that they hold for comfort? Oh, they're really attached to that. So those initial conversations, if they're led more by the setting, there's a bit more of an opportunity to set the tone of like, this is pedagogical in nature. But I think it's a huge, I mean, you know, putting that on the load of the baby room team, putting that load on their shoulders is quite a big ask, actually. It's a whole society. We need to be shifting the narrative around babies and, you know, what it means to be with a baby. It always amazes me, sorry I'm talking too much, but it always amazes me that parents can say in one sentence, God, it's really, I'm finding it really hard to look after my baby at the moment, but then suddenly turn around and think it's easy for the baby room team to do it. You know, that they seem to hold intent, they hold this contradiction in their heads of like, I find it really difficult, but other people just find it easy. And I don't know where that comes from. But there's a lot of work to do in this area. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, thank you.
No problem.
We've got Tracy with her hand up. Tracy, would you like to chip in at this point?
Yeah, thank you. I'm just going back to the point you made about leadership and people not feeling like they're leaders in the baby room specifically. And I think it kind of stems from, I think there's two things here. The baby room is always the poor relation within the setting because they're not doing any of the assessments, you know, they're not doing any of that kind of transitions to school, that sort of thing. But also within education. So we've had a lot of publications recently, new policy updates, lots talk about EYFS, but very rarely do they actually mean from birth. So again, there's that message, isn't there, coming through to the baby room staff that actually you're not part of this, you're not the important element, this is not, you know, sitting with you. We talk a lot, and you know, government in terms of the writing framework and things that have been published recently are talking about EYFS, but they mean reception.
Yes.
So where's that going, and how do you think that's can change, and how can we improve that kind of value in terms of the baby room when policy is telling us that they're not even part of that?
Yeah, I think it's a great point. And we look at status through the eyes of different people. So we've asked the question of like, okay, how do baby room educators perceive themselves? How do they feel they are perceived within the nursery? How do they feel they are perceived by parents? How do they feel they are perceived by their family and friends? And there's there's quotes that break your heart where, you know, a baby room educator will say, well, when I tell my husband that I'm exhausted, he just says to me, why are you exhausted? You just play with babies all day. And yeah, and people, we asked the question, how would you describe the work you do if you went to a party and you were having a chat about your work? And one person said, well, I actually said, I'm like a teacher. I'm a teacher, but of babies. And the response that they got was, but are you really? Are you really? So there's so much that's not in the heads of baby room educators, like it is really there, that their status is diminished and devalued. I think the level at which we can really have a massive impact quite immediately is at the level of the nursery. So I think there's a huge difference between, basically you can feel very immediately the difference between a nursery where the manager gets it and they get that the baby room is where it all starts, that this is, you know, it's like the kitchen in a house. This is the heart of the nursery, and they will put their baby room in a place that feels visible and connected and part of it. And they will have team meetings that value the work of what's going on in the baby room and really champion it. And they'll spend time in the baby room. So it's kind of like that leadership at a setting level. There's huge potential there. Again, it shouldn't be resting just on their shoulders. But if we want to think about like, where is there some very immediate growth that we could do? It would be that. It would be leaders within settings saying, where is our baby room? What are the messages that we give about our baby room? How could we be championing the work of the baby room more? Also, we get so many people being grumpy about spending time in baby rooms. So they're early years educators, but they're told, okay, can you go and, you know, be in the baby room for this week? Oh, no, I don't want to be in the baby room. It's boring. So many myths about what the baby room actually is. So I think, again, we've got to look at our qualifications. We're not doing something right there. We actually need to be reviewing them and saying, where are babies in this? You know, it shouldn't be okay that you do an entire module of work around the transition to school, but you have nothing around settling in a baby at nursery, which for that baby, my goodness, the significance of that transition for their development and their well-being is just huge. So I think there's some places where we can have a really practical impact, and it would be like looking at it at the nursery level, but also looking at our qualification system. And those would be two immediate things that we could impact upon.
Thank you, Mona. There's some really important things to think about there. Oh, we've got a message in the chat here. We've got someone who's logged in all the way from Nigeria. That's wonderful. Well, lovely to meet you, David. I don't know if you can hear me or not, but please do feel free. We've got a few more minutes if you would like to ask a question.
Good morning, everyone.
Hi, David.
It's really nice to join the group. I've been waiting to join before now, but I don't know, maybe because of the time zone. So I was not able to. When I joined, I was told that I should wait for the host to start the meeting. So, but later when I joined back, I noticed that the meeting have started a long time ago. So, but hopefully, I hope to join very early. I'll maybe keep to time so that the next meeting I will be able to participate fully. So, but it's quite very interesting. So I hope maybe we can, at the end of the meeting, we can have a reflection of what has been discussed through our email, so that I'll be able to have a full glance of the discussion.
Mm-hmm. I think there's going to be a video, David, that will be sent out.
Okay.
And so, yeah, that would be a good starting point. And then if it feels like there's any connections, of course, absolutely do be in touch.
Okay. Yeah, I put that on my chart that I'm open for any research collaboration that involves Africa.
Oh, interesting. Well, thank you very much. Yes, thank you for coming along to the RIG meetings. Myself and Lewis will be hoping to put on a few events over the next academic year. So do keep an eye out on the website, and hopefully we'll have a variety of interesting events for you to join. Okay, well, that brings us to 10:30 now. It just remains for me to say thank you so much for coming along today, Mona. I've been watching you developing this project over the last few years, and it is such a timely and wonderful thing that you are doing, and I really hope to get you along to talk to a couple of other projects that I'm involved in at the moment, because yeah, this is really, really good work that more people need to hear about. To our wonderful guests today, thank you very much for joining us, and we do hope to see you in the next academic year, perhaps at some of our other events. And the next conference, we are hoping to have a presence there, so hopefully we can get involved in some much longer conversations over the course of the next academic year. Goodbye, everyone, and have a lovely day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. Take care. Bye bye.